Hello and welcome to a new interview from MinnMax. MinnMax is an outlet about games, friends, and getting better. Thank you for clicking on this. Thank you for being here. Today's interview is with the game director for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Naoki Hamaguchi. I am incredibly honored that he would join us for an interview on an independent game channel like MinnMax. We hope you enjoy it. If you all do enjoy it, you can always subscribe to MinnMax's YouTube channel. It's a small click for you, but it's a huge thing for an independent channel like us. In this interview, we get nerdy about the development of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This interview is done through a translator, but if you speak Japanese and you want to hear the interview in the raw Japanese, you can do that. We have a link below in the description where you can check out the unedited version of this interview if you don't want to hear the dubbed version overall, so hope you enjoy that. Also, there are timestamps for all the questions in this interview for your viewing convenience. If you enjoy that, again, simple subscribe will work on our YouTube channel. Otherwise, if you want to help support independent games media directly, you can go to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. And if you jump in at that $5 tier on Patreon, you unlock the podcast version of this interview, all of our other interviews, including with Sakaguchi-san, the creator of Final Fantasy, and you're also supporting the deepest dive on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Here at MinnMax, we're taking the game, breaking it up into 5 sections for a 5-part game club discussion. We're creating the best, most thorough discussion about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on the internet, but we need your help. So if you support us on Patreon at even the $2 tier, you can submit your comments for us to read as we talk about Rebirth as a huge collective hive mind, because there's a lot to celebrate and a lot to talk about in this game. And so we could use your help supporting that big of a discussion, because it's an unreasonable thing for an outlet to do. But we love Final Fantasy VII and we want to give this game the discussion it deserves. The deepest dive will be available on MinnMax's YouTube channel on a weekly basis, or the podcast version for your convenience is in that Patreon exclusive podcast feed. But without further ado, here's Hamaguchi-san. Hamaguchi-san, welcome to MinnMax, sir.
MinnMax へようこそ、Hamaguchi-san.
Hi.
Congratulations, huge day for you. We're recording this the day that the reviews hit. I'm curious, when do you get a chance to breathe a sigh of relief and say that we did it? I mean, is it when the game goes gold? Is it when test reviews come in? Is it when actual reviews come in? Is it when it starts selling really well? When do you get to relax?
そうですね。
Yeah, so first off, this time around, we were able to kind of surpass that wall of the Metacritic 90 score that even the remake, wasn't able to. And, we kind of hit this new threshold here. So, I do feel this sense of, relief there. And at the same time, I'm very interested in seeing how the players will respond and their feedback. So I think, hearing that, I think will be another sort of, point where there's a sense of relief there. But I, honestly speaking, I do also need to kind of set my sights on developing the next title too. The third title of the trilogy. So I think maybe until that is complete is when I'll finally get to have that real sigh of relief.
Ooh, how are you going to relax then? After you finish the third part, what's the plan for your ultimate relaxation?
So
no really solid plans in terms of the ultimate relaxation, but really kind of knowing myself. Instead of a long-term vacation, I am most likely going to be kind of looking for something new, and I'm just that kind of person that'll be kind of excited to work on something new. So even if I'm talking about the sort of ultimate relaxation, I do predict that once I'm done with the third title, I'll just be kind of thinking about the next title that I'll be working on and kind of really engaged on that. So that's probably more of the reality.
So going from remake to rebirth, largely the same team, largely the same tools. I'm curious, was this one more challenging for this remake trilogy? Are they getting more challenging to develop as you go, or slightly simpler?
So when we're looking at sort of Rebirth as a title itself, it's quite obvious from sort of the world and world map and the game itself that, it is something quite more of a feat and, challenging to develop than remake. But still that being the case, we were able to kind of work with the sort of environment and as the tools that we had developed, and worked with from remake, as you mentioned. And we were also, able to have a very sort of solid discussion on like going into creating Rebirth, where we were able to sort of reflect on sort of our understanding experiences and really, like hone in on areas that were, previously sort of like bottlenecks that we could solve as a priority. And in that way, I think we were really able to, maximize the speed of development and, really come together as a team in that way. And so in that sense, having that kind of carried over knowledge and experience from working together as a team from Remake into Rebirth was extremely beneficial. And it really, led itself to being able to create this, like very solid, massive piece of work in 4 years' time that we had initially intended to do so. So I do think that, this will continue to happen going from Rebirth into the final title. And so I'm very excited for the world to kind of experience Rebirth's, release. And I think this will be kind of like a wonderful, sort of a positive surprise for players to experience. But the sort of, similar sort of surprise and, feeling of playing something great will also occur in the third title that'll be released. I'm quite confident of that. So I'm looking forward to that process as well.
Yeah, I love hearing how proud you are of keeping largely the same team together. And I'm curious what you think the chances are of that team remaining together after part 3, not for Final Fantasy VII, but for something else. I'm not familiar enough with the structure of Square's, business divisions. But is it possible to keep this team together moving beyond part 3?
まあ、そうですね。
Yeah, so definitely, I would, that would be wonderful. And I do think that, the sort of current, team dynamics within the team that created Rebirth is really great. And I think the, sort of overall sentiment and feeling within the team is really absolutely wonderful right now as well, especially with this, wonderful score reveal today for Rebirth too. And so I think, people are in really high spirits and in terms of sort of the team, I think the sort of motivation is also very much heavily, people really respond to sort of the global reception of the work that we have created. So in that way, I do really hope to continue to, sort of foster this type of environment and to sort of grow together with the team in creating these types of works that sort of garner that type of, of reception and, in hopes that they will continue to, want to work together and lead together.
Does that include wanting to keep working with Final Fantasy VII's original developers as well, with Nomura and Katase?
そうですね。まあ、
So, of course, while there is no, clear kind of like, solidified plan or kind of direction that we're planning to move in at this point, of course, while there's many, creators within the team that with, wonderful ideas. And also, I think for the creators that had, built and worked on the original Final Fantasy VII that have been with, this company for many years, also offer this extremely sort of vital perspective in that regards of one's kind of building and this original that dates back. And so I do hope that I do think it would be wonderful to kind of be able to kind of work together and with those kind of talents and creators with such sensibilities.
Yeah, I'm not looking for specifics on story details, but I'm just wondering on the development level, how do you learn where the story is going for a game like Rebirth? Do you get an email from Nojima-san? Does everyone go on a work retreat and just sit around a table and talk through ideas? What are those earliest conversations like for the story elements for Rebirth?
そういう意味だと、まあ、
So I do think, for kind of works of entertainment, I do think it's quite essential to have, someone with somewhat of like the main ownership or from which we derive that sort of main scenario. And it's not so, efficient or perhaps the best idea to have, like numerous people, like many people offering, ideas. And so in this way, in this sense, we have the main scenario writer being Nojima-san, so we felt that, he is the one with sort of this authorship to, create and this idea, this initial scenario in which we are going to, realize as a game. And so instead of kind of sharing this with the sort of entire team, it's more so that, members of the team, such as me, Nomura-san, Toriyama-san, Kitase-san, will first kind of look into this and see how it aligns with the overall worldview of Final Fantasy VII, and how, the sort of game experience that we are hoping to deliver. And so we'll kind of decide on this sort of overall sort of direction and sort of tune this with all of our sort of feedback, and then from there, the script is kind of returns to me, Hamaguchi, and then from there we will kind of implement that into the actual game and see about realizing this as a video game. And of course, with any type of other mediums like film too, when we go from like a text-based script or scenario into something visual and moving like video games or films, of course, there can be some discrepancies or things that need to be filled in or adjusted. So those are times where I would note that, and then I'll note some places to emphasize, some places to change, and then we'll be adjusting the scenario further in that way. So there are several rounds of that in which the scenario is kind of fine-tuned, and so that's the way that it's been formed.
That's interesting. So Nojima-san is sending you an outline or a rough script rather than standing in front of the group and pitching his story that he wants to tell for Rebirth.
So it's more so that, initially they'll have the sort of draft of the script that is shared with Hamaguchi, Kitase, Nomura, Toriyama from Nojima-san. And together they'll sort of decide on the overall draft. And once that is concluded, then it'll go back to Hamaguchi to then also be shared with the greater team. And from then on, there'll be sort of the game design and sort of documents related to that will also be created based on this script. And then from there, the sort of specific roles and responsibilities for the team members are decided, and sort of which areas of the script are they going to be responsible for. So that's how it takes place.
Yeah, I love how funny Rebirth is, and Remake as well, and just the tone. It feels like, as a huge Final Fantasy VII fan, it's been something that I've been craving for so long, and I feel like Remake and Rebirth are perfect on that front. And I'm curious, that overall tone, is that coming from your role as a director, much like a film director really helps dictate tone, or is the tone of the game and the comedic tone especially just coming from the overall vibe of the group of developers?
So the way in which, this is done is that, once the sort of script is, delivered, back to Hamaguchi-san, as mentioned earlier, more so for the sort of, the core sort of humorous and comedic elements are kind of, written or described within the script from Nojima-san. But from there, of course, it's kind of more, fleshed out, and we are kind of more responsible for how we are going to kind of express and realize this so that the comedic tones really shine through. And so, I will be kind of, working together and discussing with each of the, teams responsible for the sections to kind of determine this. And I do feel that it's important for not just kind of one person to be able to change tons of parts of the scenario. And I think it's this game kind of really leads itself to having various ideas coming from different groups and teams to be kind of incorporated to kind of best express what we are trying to have the players experience. So once those are kind of decided and worked upon with each team member that's dealing with certain sections of the script, it'll kind of go back to sort of Toriyama-san and Nojima-san. And we also have an in-office sort of scenario writer person. And so if there are sort of I will take sort of my thoughts and also kind of relay this to the scenario writer that will write this as something that we can deliver to Nojima-san. And so in that way, we kind of work together to work at the scenario. So for parts like Red 13 riding the Chocobo, or like Aerith and Barrett's synergy attack where she's wearing Barrett's sunglasses, those are all actually ideas that came from the dev team and kind of originated there that were kind of incorporated it later on. And I think that, within the dev team, like all of us really have this, immense respect for Final Fantasy VII as a title. And I think, that is really key. And also having this ability to kind of look almost, envision things from a fan perspective, being fans and players of the original game is something that really allows us to contribute and add to these ideas. And I think there's sort of this understanding among us in that way. So, and I think that was an immense strength for us working together as a team.
What was the most exciting moment of the game's development for you? Was there one moment when you saw something finally implemented into the build where you said, yes? Like what was the height of excitement for you?
そうですね。
When sort of the game, starts taking form is when, of course, like we start feeling something that like great is developing. And I think at this time, like a lot of, the feeling are heightened and it really increases like the creator's passions and also sort of motivations for us as a whole. And that was definitely the case. But I also remember when producer Kitase had sort of played the game at the time, I received a message from him, like on my phone, and he said, this was amazing. And just, reading that, I remember just feeling kind of this like overwhelming happiness hearing that from him.
Oh, that's sweet. Well, congratulations to the entire team. I'm loving my time with it so much, and I can't thank you all enough for making our dreams come true in a huge way.
いえいえ、こちらこそ。
Yeah, thank you so much as well, and really look forward to also meeting you perhaps in another time.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to say?
Lush.